Just a quick little shout out to Bethesda, their new game Starfield. I've been playing it for a few days. I played through most of the game, and I gotta say, in all honesty,
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
now, if you're someone who thinks that this game is a top tier AAA game and a top tier Xbox exclusive title, if you think Bethesda created something truly amazing here and that's your honest opinion, then that's okay. You might also have a mental illness, or you're probably just a dumbass. And I'm not talking like a entry level dumbass, I'm talking Red Foreman is your father level of dumbass. This has been one of the most boring games that I have ever played, period. I was never hyped or excited for this game since day one, and I've talked about this over the past 2 years on some of my videos that I was never hyped or excited like the other fanboys were, and I really do hope that Microsoft is happy with the outcome of this game, because I don't think that as of now they got their money's worth. And I don't even know what to call this game anymore. Do I call it Starfield, Livefield, Borefield, Fast Travel Simulator, Loading Screen Simulator? The list goes on and on. Now, I do want to start with some things that the game probably did pretty well, and I will admit, after playing a little over 20 hours, some opinions might have slightly changed. Not too much and not many, just slightly. But one thing I want to go into here that is really well, in my opinion, is the robot companion that you meet in the beginning of the game. Because he will say your name. He will say, hey, Captain Anthony, or whatever you decide to name your character. And that's pretty cool. And that's just about everything that's cool in the game. But in all seriousness though, I do want to get into this review and talk about some things that I felt maybe were good, but most of it was pretty bad. And I do want to break this up into various categories, and in my honest opinion, you probably shouldn't give this game a try, and if you disagree, just let me know in the comments without being a dick. So let's jump into it. I want to start with character customization. Pretty typical, yes, there's a lot of options. You can change various features of your character, you can change the scale of certain things, reshape different facial features. And I personally don't care about character customization. I don't want to spend like an hour or more creating my character, creating how they look. That's time I could spend playing the game. I think the character customization is fine here. It's nothing as, in my opinion, expansive in terms of options like what we saw in Skyrim, but you do get quite a decent amount of options here, which is good. But the problem is, when the game doesn't look good, you're not going to end up with a good character model because it looks like crap. My character looked like Olmec from Legends of the Hidden Temple. If you know, you know. You also do get these characteristics that change some things in the story. It also changes some stats that you may have throughout your experience. And I thought it was a bit pretty cool, you know, even though it is basically borrowed from Cyberpunk. And the choices I made ultimately had no noticeable changes in my playthrough. I chose one that was basically being raised from a certain city as like a street kid or street rat or something, and it only played a role in the entire game in one main mission, and it just gave me a few different dialogue options, and that's it. I also chose to have the dream home, which does give you a loan that you have to pay back, and the dream home doesn't have any furniture. Like, what the fuck kind of a dream home doesn't have any furniture? And yes, these are just minor nitpicks here and there, but with a game that comes out in this type of state, this kind of game, it's kind of needed here. And going on more with the dream home, I didn't bother going back to the dream home after I went to visit it once. I never went to the bank about the loan. I never paid the loan back. It really doesn't matter at all. There's really no point in wasting a characteristic on the dream home when you have different places that you can sleep at, which is going to help you heal yourself, I guess. I also assume maybe you can buy a house later on in the game if you don't choose this characteristic, but I noticed there aren't any children running around in the game, and the reason why I mentioned that is because at least in Skyrim, you can get a house, you can get married, and you can adopt 2 kids. I don't know if you can marry anybody in the game. I do know there's a somewhat dating system here. You can kind of date somebody, but I don't think you're able to have kids and start a family in the game. So it kind of makes having a house kind of pointless. And it's bizarre that a game like Stardew Valley even has these types of features, and it's a far inferior game in terms of performance and visuals, etc., etc. Now, moving on to the story, there is some mystery that happens throughout the game, and I am going to give you this warning now. There will be some minor to possibly somewhat major spoilers in this review. So that's your warning. Here we go. In the story, you do find some, I guess you could call it a space artifact or an alien artifact. I don't really know if that's what they're calling it. And you find it pretty early on, and essentially you join the Constellation team to find more of these artifacts, because it does give you some type of vision, and you're trying to find out what the vision is and what is the purpose of these artifacts. Now, I wasn't stupid enough to pay for the game in early access like some people were, so I saw a lot of reviews before the game released from those who had the copy early, and one thing that was pretty common among all the reviewers is that the game takes roughly 12 hours or more to be good. And I also heard that if you just focus on main story missions, you could beat the game in roughly 15 or so hours, maybe a little bit more. So essentially what that translates to is about 80% of the game is what you have to play through in order for it to be good. Now imagine someone said to you, 80% of your life is going to be boring and a drag and repetitive, and when you reach your mid 60s to early 70s, your life will be great and exciting and very fun. You're also going to die pretty soon, but it's more about the destination and not the journey in this game, I guess. And this game is pretty boring for the most part. Majority of your main missions are going to be fetch quests. Go here, kill some enemies, get the item, bring it back to the lodge, watch a little scene with them talking, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
I'm the villain in this story? I can't believe I'm the one pushing us to be tougher for once.
You're spending too much time with Walter, Mateo. He's turning our adorable teddy bear into a grizzly.
I hate taking sides, but I agree with Mateo. I find that a little competition is the spark people need to push themselves to achieve their goals.
And I want to compare this to Skyrim for a little bit, because in Skyrim, if those of you who either never played and don't know about this or you don't remember, within the first 1 to 2 hours, there's so much that happens in the game. You're captured, you're set to be executed, a dragon comes and attacks the little village you're in, you escape with one of two options of a companion, you go through a cave fighting giant spiders, you exit the cave, you find a little town with a little lake on the side, a little stream, and there's people there and it's calm and the music is all relaxing. You keep running, you get to Whiterun, you can see some warriors fight a giant. You go to Whiterun and you talk to the Jarl about the dragon, they make you fight the dragon and you take the dragon's soul when you defeat him, and you learn that you're dragonborn and you can use dragon abilities. All that within 1 or 2 hours in Skyrim, whereas here, to get something really interesting that's major story that I won't spoil here, it takes 12 or more hours to get to, and that's not good. It's fucking boring. Now, a big spoiler here, you do essentially unlock some space abilities similar to the dragon abilities in Skyrim, except it's more exciting to find them in Skyrim because it's not as repetitive as in my opinion. Whereas here, you talk to one of the companions, he tells you where to go, you go to the planet, you follow your scanner, you go to the temple, you do a little puzzle type thing, and you get the power. And these puzzles that you have to do, quote unquote puzzles, are so boring and repetitive that even one of my companions committed suicide by launching herself into the wall. And with the powers, I unlocked half of them so far. They're not as good or anywhere close to being as good as the ones in Skyrim. And there is some abilities here that are similar to what you get in Skyrim. But in Skyrim, you can upgrade those abilities to a level 2 and 3 by finding the remaining, levels of that power. Whereas here, from what I can tell so far, you cannot upgrade the abilities. If I'm wrong and there is a way, let me know in the comments. You do also get some type of item that's supposed to help your abilities, similar to Skyrim using Dragon Souls to unlock the abilities you earn. And in here, it really just makes your regeneration of the power bar just a bit quicker than normal. And you only get these items by killing a specific type of enemy. I won't spoil that one for you guys. And it's a bad system. It just takes forever to get anything interesting to happen. Now, when it comes to having something exciting or interesting, I will say that what slightly changed for me is I was trying to romance one of the characters, and I was a tiny bit invested in trying to make that happen, as well as what the character's backstory was.
Although I'm flattered that you think of me that way, there's a time and a place for that sort of talk. This is definitely not one of them. Well then, I've certainly wasted enough of your valuable time.
But I got to a point where I couldn't romance her anymore. I won't go into spoilers as to why, but I just didn't care after that, and it wasn't enough for me to try to go back to an earlier save just to fix it, because I also couldn't go back to an earlier save that had enough time behind where I can go ahead and fix that mistake that I made.
This better be good. You're kidding, right? I'm not going anywhere with you. At least not until I can find some way to convince myself not to hate your guts.
I just don't care about the characters or the backstories. I don't care about their personalities. I don't care about what they have going on, what they want to talk to you about. And it mostly is for me just the visuals and the way the characters look. And I want to go into that next, is the visuals and the performance. This is a current gen game, or next gen if you want to call it that. These consoles can do 4K, HDR, 120 frames per second, SSD for faster performance and loading the game quicker and downloading your games faster. And the game kind of plays like a game from a base model PS4 and Xbox One. Yes, some things in the game does look pretty good. The lighting in some places are pretty good, but everywhere else it just looks bad. Yes, certain buildings and locations you go to will have a lot of items on the shelves. It is a bit detailed, but there's a whole bunch of other areas that are boring, bland. And I'm not just talking about the planets. Of course, the planets are going to be bland and boring and unexplored, but even when you go to one of the cities in the game, there's a few cities in the game. I think I found 2 or 3 cities that you can travel, city or town, whatever you want to call it. They're not that good to look at. They're very boring and they're uneventful. There's nothing exciting going on. It kind of gives me a cyberpunk vibe, except cyberpunk has a bit more going for it, in my opinion. The city of cyberpunk just looks better. And not only that, but the NPCs don't really react to you in this game, besides just looking at you with their weird ugly faces. I actually was doing a challenge where I had to tire myself out constantly so I can upgrade my stamina, and I almost fell asleep doing that, running through New Atlantis, because it's just boring. And of course the frame rate drops heavily. It doesn't matter if you're in combat or exploring a city or a planet, or you're just flying a ship, the frame rate will drop pretty often. I will say spaceflight, I haven't noticed any frame rate dropping when I did spaceflight, but spaceflight is pretty boring, and I'm gonna get to that in a bit. But with these visuals, I understand having a created character is not gonna look as good as a character from a game that has motion capture, like Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West. But Bethesda refuses to use a newer, updated engine to make the game look and run better than it ever could from previous Bethesda games. And instead, it's just the same old system, and it's ugly and it sucks, and Bethesda should not be allowed to carry on this way. It's not okay for people to just ignore it and say, this is fine because it's Bethesda and that's normal. No, it's not normal. It shows that they're lazy, or they have the inability to actually make a better looking and performing game. And the game does have a photo mode, which I'm a sucker for photo mode. I love photo mode, especially ones that have a lot of features. The one in Starfield does seem to have a decent number of features. But again, when the game looks like crap, it's kind of pointless to have the photo mode anyway. When it comes to character animations and the way they talk, it kind of reminds me of when you have a sister growing up and she has a Cabbage Patch doll and they can talk or they eat the food you can give them, or Chucky from Child's Play, the way that he talks and moves his face while he's in his doll form, you know, is just ugly, and I just don't want to look at it any more than I have to. And if you think that that's not enough to convince you, Gotham Knights had better facial animations from characters and better character models than this. Now I want to go into the controls now. This was a big thing for a lot of people, and it is a big one for me. The controls suck. Straight up, the controls are bad, and there's no tutorial in the game. And I wonder, when it came to the conversation of the tutorial, it probably went like this. You know, one guy said, "Hey Todd, I don't see any plans to implement a tutorial for the player. Who's working on that?" And Todd Howard said, "Fuck the tutorial, fuck the player, let them figure it out themselves. We have 16 times the content they can explore, 16 times the detail." They don't tell you anything in the game. They don't tell you how to manage your inventory so you can have quick access to changing your weapons without having to access the weapon screen by going through all the menus. They don't tell you how to jump. They don't really tell you how to do space combat correctly, how to board ships. To my knowledge, I couldn't find out how to do it. I also didn't spend much time on space combat. We'll get to that in a bit. But they don't tell you how to use the flashlight. You have a flashlight in the game and they don't tell you how to use it. It's basic things that they can put in the game like a tutorial system, and they don't. Hey guys, I actually stand corrected. Yes, they do show you how to use the flashlight. It's up there on the top. I completely missed that when I was playing the game at the very beginning. Maybe it's my poor vision. Maybe because my TV is, not the smallest TV, so I didn't see it from up there. But it still doesn't change from the fact that the game still doesn't tell you anything. And I'm not the only reviewer who said it. You can watch GameRanks and IGN and GameSpot. They will basically tell you the same thing, primarily GameRanks. The game does not tell you anything, and that's a problem. But I stand corrected. It does show you how to use the flashlight. So, hey, I'm an asshole for being wrong on that one, right? That's what everyone's going to say. But it's just the fucking flashlight. Nothing too major. Back to the review. There's a basic tutorial section when you get into the spaceship for the first time. And that's about it. I think if you buy a physical copy of the game, it does give you a little paper, or the back of the cover is the controls for the game. And that's not good if they don't put a tutorial in the game. Combat, as I said, is bad. The controls are bad. The combat with the gunplay feels both smooth and stiff simultaneously, as if your character has feet of the Flash but arms like a sloth. The aiming is terrible. Weapons don't seem to have accurate damage or impact. I can use a weapon with 50 something points of damage and only take a tiny bit of health when I use it, but then I use an assault rifle with 5 or 6 points of damage, and I'm cutting down that health bar like a hot knife on butter. It just doesn't make any sense. Space travel, as I mentioned, and space flight is not good. You have to manage your gauges for your different ship systems, your engine, your missiles, your lasers, your shield. It's a bit clunky to decrease the energy for one and increase another one. I understand why they did it the way they did, and it's an interesting idea. It's just not implemented in a perfect way, in my opinion. Space flight feels very slow and sluggish. Even if you have a better speed or increased speed, it just doesn't feel good. It looks slow. There's nothing interesting to look at because it's space. Space is not that interesting to look at. I never bothered with space combat really, and that kind of screwed me over because I got to a point where I need to have a certain ship that has, or a better ship that has a certain stat boost compared to my current ship, as well as I got thrown into a couple of space fights that I needed a better ship to survive, and I should be allowed to ignore the ship mechanics of upgrading and stealing other ships if I want to. But you kind of can't. You kind of do have to do a little bit of that here and there. And I felt that the space flight and space combat from Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga was much more smooth and better implemented and designed than in Starfield. And I played Lego Star Wars on Switch, so imagine that. And not only that, but this is a space exploration game where you can't explore space. You cannot travel from one planet to the other, and if you want to fast travel, even if you already explored the area you're traveling to, you have to go through so many menus and loading screens to do so. And people try to say, well, the loading screens are not very long because it's on an SSD. Sometimes loading screens can take more than 30 seconds or even up to a minute, and some loading screens takes a couple of seconds. If I want to fast travel in other video games like Horizon Forbidden West, it takes me 2 seconds to fast travel, and I don't have to go through any bullshit of extra menus and screens. In here, you cannot jump from point A to point B. You have to open your menu, go to the mission section or the star map section, wherever you want to go to, choose the destination, set it as your destination, choose travel, and then it sends you to the space area outside the planet. Reopen the pause menu, go back to the star system, choose the planet you want to land on, and then click land. And in some areas that you explored previously, like the lodge, yes, you can land straight there. In other places, you can't. Not only that, but fast travel is such a disaster where you try to fast travel to your ship or to a I don't remember what they call it, like a landing port for the spaceship in each city or whatever city you're going to. And despite choosing the landing port to fast travel to, it won't fast travel you there. I tried it on New Atlantis, and it kept taking me to a spot outside of the city when I specifically chose more than once the landing port in the city, and it wouldn't take me there. So fast travel is bad. Like I said, it's fast travel simulator or loading screen simulator. It's not good. I shouldn't have to jump through so many hoops and screens to go from point A to point B. And one of the dumbest things this game does is how it handles some of the stat points that you can use. You do get a boost pack very early on, and I actually jumped off a building with one of my companions, and she commented like, is the boost pack not working? And I said, no, it's not working because I'm jumping and I'm pressing the jump button to boost, and it's not doing anything. And I thought it was a bug, but again, the game doesn't tell you anything. You have to spend a skill point to use the boost pack. That's like spending a skill point to drive a car if you already have a license. Or imagine playing a 3D open world Mario RPG and you have to spend a skill point to jump. Like, are you fucking kidding me? And there's no maps in the game to explore the cities. You don't really know where you're going. It's hard to find stores like a weapon vendor without a map in the game. And fucking Skyrim had maps in the game. You could find places in each city in Skyrim because it had maps. This game is about exploring space and exploring the different planets, and there's no fucking maps. Now, I never ran into an invisible wall on these planets like other players have, and that's because I wasn't stupid enough to try to explore an entire planet. I mean, really? You're gonna explore an entire planet? Are you fucking kidding me? That's not realistic. It's like, well, not about the realism, but to think a game will put a full planet to explore, not to mention, you think Bethesda is gonna put an entire planet to explore and then times that by like 1,000? No. But the fact that I haven't ran into those invisible walls does tell me that when you go to a planet, there are pretty big areas that you can explore. It is pretty expansive, so I'll give them that. But again, it's very bland. I understand they weren't trying to make a No Man's Sky where you can travel from planet to planet and explore full planets, but they probably should have made their version of a No Man's Sky. Next category is the music. This one is going to be quick. I don't really remember or can think of any music from this game that's like something that I can remember, something that sticks with me. It's just forgettable. I also don't even notice when there's music playing in the game, and it's crazy because Skyrim had some of the most relaxing and badass music I've ever heard. And I'm not just talking about the theme song from Skyrim, because that's still one of the greatest theme songs of all time, but when you're exploring Skyrim and you're not in combat, it's very relaxing, it's calm, you can hear the music clearly. When you're in combat, it gets you hyped and pumped up with the adrenaline. Here, if you played me a song from Starfield or music from Starfield, I wouldn't know what it is. I just wouldn't. The AI and the bugs and glitches. Here we go. Some of the worst AI that I've seen in any video game. It's very inconsistent. NPCs either won't react to me when they're fighting me, and then like I'm battling enemies and I could be standing in front of one of them and they just won't see me, they won't react to me. There's times where they can shoot through walls that they shouldn't be able to shoot through, but I can't shoot through the walls and hit them. There's times where they would just stop fighting and just walk away from me, or they just won't do anything. Or there's sometimes where the NPC, like the enemy, would just stand there even though he's much stronger than me, and I just hide behind a bar and I just blast him until I need to reload and keep blasting. He's just stuck there standing. I have seen some bugs such as objects or spaceships just spinning around rapidly in the air, the bodies that are in between walls, legs just sticking out of the ground. Nothing that was game breaking, and I will admit I did not see a lot of bugs as I was expecting. But to say that this game has the least amount of bugs out of all Bethesda games is not a good selling point in my opinion. It's kind of like someone telling you our hospital used to have at least one person die every single day, but now not that many people die here. People still die, but not a lot. You wouldn't want to go to that hospital because it has a huge mortality rate. You want to go to a hospital with a fewer mortality rate. So I don't want to go to a game developer and play a game that has a huge bug and glitch rate when I can play better looking, better performing, more entertaining games on both Game Pass with Xbox and on the PlayStation. And what if EA said Star Wars Battlefront 3 will not have a lot of microtransactions like the previous one, but it'll still be there? You're not going to want to play that. It's not good. So typical Bethesda bugs, glitches. If you want to say I'm nitpicking, that's fine, but it's all these different notes and points to make that every reviewer touched on. So if I'm nitpicking, that means all the reviewers are nitpicking. And if you feel that way and you don't like my opinion and you think I'm just overreacting, you can just eat my ass because I really don't care. Inconsistencies. Now I did mention this earlier kind of, but a lot of things are inconsistent. It'll let you do certain things one time and then it won't do it another time. When it comes to space travel, as I mentioned, you can sometimes travel immediately to your destination and sometimes you can't. When it comes to tracking a mission that you want to do, what I remember from Skyrim is if I'm tracking a mission already and someone gives me a side mission, it'll say like a note that you have that mission available and you can then go to your mission list and change it if you want. Whereas in here, sometimes it'll automatically change to the new side mission you just got, and sometimes it won't, but it also won't tell you when it does do it. And it does say on the top left screen you can hold the start button to now track it, and whenever I used it, it didn't do anything. It literally does nothing. And then when it doesn't tell you that it changed the mission, you end up running to a destination that is not the destination you want to go to. It happened to me a couple of times. I ran to a spot and I'm like, this isn't my mission, it's the fucking side mission. I wasn't ready to do this one yet. Then you gotta go back to your menu, which is very slow to access, and then go back to the mission list and change the mission. It's a fucking disaster. Aside from that, weapon damage, I might have mentioned this earlier, stronger weapons don't seem to do as much damage as the weaker ones that are assault rifles or whatever. Again, they don't tell you anything in this game, how to play, how to properly do things. I had one mission that was actually kind of fun, where I was sneaking into some rich dude's company, and they're guiding me through some stealth to go through the company without being spotted. And I got spotted the first time because they didn't show me where to go. They didn't give me the marker of you actually got to go here then instead of there. And it's one of those things like, yeah, you probably got to pay attention to what they're saying, but they don't tell you anything, and that's a huge problem with this game. It's very inconsistent and it doesn't make any sense. One thing that may be cool that is consistent is when you do drop items somewhere, it'll pretty much stay there for forever, I guess. I dropped items in front of the lodge, a whole bunch of items that were making me slow, and well, not slow, but I couldn't carry them because it was too heavy of items, and they're still there. I dropped them like 3 days ago and they're still there. With carrying items, and you become, I guess they call it over encumbered or whatever, when you have too many items to carry and it is more than what you weight capacity you can carry. In other games like Skyrim, you can't really jump and you can only walk. And here, it won't tell you until you keep running and walking and moving, and your oxygen will start to deplete without you sprinting. And then it'll say on the top right in a very small text that you basically have too many items to carry and you need to drop stuff. Some people hate this feature because in a game like Bethesda, you want to steal and grab everything that you see. My problem is it doesn't tell you when you have reached capacity of carrying weight, and it's not very clear when it happens. In the little bottom left corner is your oxygen level and some other warning signs because of the watch they give you, the same bullshit smartwatch they try to sell you with the collector's edition. And it's so small and out of the way that you don't really notice it, and it's hard to read. And you also get these warning messages on the top right, or different notification messages for different things, and they disappear in like 2 seconds, so you can't really read what you got or what you just found because it's gone in 2 seconds. By the time you look at it, it's gone. So they need to fix that as well. One other big thing is, I don't know if this is part of the game, if it just happens at random or it's just inconsistent, but I was traveling to a location I had to get to, and I got stopped by a fleet of like the UC, whatever they are, and I had to basically go undercover for them to infiltrate a pirate team. And they were talking about how I have to pay for the crimes I committed, when I never committed a single crime in this game. I never stole from anybody. I never killed any civilians. The only crime I committed was from a story mission, a main story mission I had to steal from this guy, and my bounty was 500. And I know that this wasn't related to the mission because after that mission, after I started that mission and I went to another location, they stopped me for the bounty, and I just paid the bounty and called it a day. So I don't know if this is supposed to happen, and if it is, it's kind of unfair to just throw this at you while you're trying to focus on something else instead. Very inconsistent, and I just don't agree. I didn't do any of the base building, or I didn't focus any time into the ship building, so I'm not going to talk about those. I did hear the base building is a very late game thing, and I heard it's pretty similar to Fallout 4 but better, but I just don't care. I think I got the mission to give me the option to do that, and I said no, because I really don't care. I didn't want to do it. It's something I didn't want to put my time into. If I decide to go through a second run through, which I probably won't, but if I do, maybe I'll try things differently and explore more. And before I go into the end of this, there is a lot to see. I'll give it that. There is a lot of things you can see. I've even seen videos of things where I'm like, I haven't seen that yet. That's pretty cool. Maybe I want to see that. But again, it's mostly just boring, bland, repetitive things. You're going to see the same group of enemies. You're going to see the same types of areas. You know, a base you have to infiltrate, kill the enemies, go into the cave, get the artifact. You're going to bring it back to the lodge. And I did hear there are some side quests that are much more interesting than the main quest. That's kind of crazy. Your main quest is so boring that people want to play the side quest instead. Is that typical Bethesda? Is that what Bethesda does? If so, get new writers. That's fucking lame. Why not make one of those side stories that are very interesting the main story? That's what I come to a game for, the main story. And you're probably going to hate this review, and you're probably going to disagree. If you disagree by anything I said, just don't be a dick about it. Just let me know in the comments what you liked about the game, what you didn't like about the game, things that you agree with me, things that you disagree. Is there things that I was wrong about here, and you can point me in the right direction? As I said, the game did get a couple of interesting points here and there, but that was more than 12 or so hours, maybe at this point over 15 hours for that to happen, and it sucks, honestly. I do not rate my reviews on a scale of 1 to 10. If you don't know this by now, I rate on should you play it or not. If you're a Bethesda fanboy, you're gonna like this game because you've been playing the same shit from Bethesda for the past, I don't know, 10 plus years. If you just wanted a fun space exploration game, this is not it. I do not think you should play this game. I think that there is some potential to have something great here if they focused on more of a No Man's Sky type of game, and if they had a better engine and made the game look better and perform better, then yeah, because I love Skyrim. I've never beaten Skyrim, but I love Skyrim, and this is just Skyrim in space, but done poorly in my opinion. If you want to have a really fun, somewhat RPG, I guess, but open world game with a lot of mechanics and great visuals and performance, Red Dead 2 came out in 2018, and it performs and plays way better, and it's more interesting. The story's better, the cutscenes are better, the character models are better, and it does have RPG elements in the game. So if not, play Skyrim again. I don't mind playing Skyrim again. It's just the fact that when I play Skyrim, I don't stop playing Skyrim. I just don't stop, and I keep going, and I lose sleep, and I end up being late for work or whatever I have to do, so I'm not going to play Skyrim because of that. And of course, this game is not going to be Game of the Year, and I hope it's not a contender for Game of the Year, because if it is a contender for Game of the Year, I'm going to sell my Xbox and lose my freaking mind. And I think we should get a petition to make Phil Spencer resign, because we know Xbox has been in a bad situation since the 360. And Phil Spencer himself said that, so don't argue with me on that. He himself said it publicly. Xbox had lost since the 360 and the One, and they're still losing now. So Phil Spencer should resign to get someone in who can put Xbox on the map and make them much better. And Todd Howard, you should resign.
And I never want to hear it again, and I'm never gonna fucking forgive him for wasting my time. That is time I will never get back, motherfucker.
I also didn't know that Shawn Michaels was in the game, so that's interesting.
You need to understand something. That could never happen.
I know a few dark sides of the Aquila Moons, but if you're looking for deep history lessons, well, I'm gonna fall asleep before you do.